So let's have a little chat, shall we? Let's have a little occult chat. This is your host, The Occult View. I know it's been a minute since I've made a video. I really haven't had much to report on. Just living in my reality, um, focusing on the things that I need to focus on in my own work spiritually. And that's my private relationship between me and spirit. And I'm a firm believer in spiritual privacy. You know what I'm saying? For me, not speaking for anybody else. But I want to come and talk about something that's very, very important and something that has been going on, I want to say on and off, um, for, I want to say, the past 50 years, even before some of us were, even born. And I want to talk, well, what that is the vibrational shifting of the earth. The earth has gone through many vibrational shifts. The last one, if I'm not mistaken, the last major one was during the times of Atlantis and Lemuria, where there was a spiritual shift on the planet. And I truly believe and I feel and I know I had a past life in Atlantis, and it wasn't what people thought. All of the hairy deary and floaty doty shit that people talk about Atlantis, it wasn't like that. People add stuff into real life things and turn them into myths and fairy tales, to distract you from what was really happening at that time. And during the time of Atlantis, there were wars taking place. And those wars also contributed to, or they were part of, I guess you can say, the spiritual uprising on the planet. Because people, that's if Atlantis was even on Earth. Because sometimes I believe Atlantis was on another planet or in a different dimensional planetary frequency. You know what I'm saying? And just like now, there were wars then. There were tyrants then that used technology to control, manipulate not only the elements, but also the people. I constantly have dreams, which to me are past life recollections of being in Atlantis, having to go underground because of massive floods that took place. And I don't even think it was on this dimensional level of Earth, it was on another one. Now, when Atlantis was at its highest or its pinnacle, it was in a higher vibrational frequency. But what happened was, like with most advanced civilizations, they began to, like this one, they began to turn against the people. They started becoming greedy. They started becoming needy. They started becoming narcissistic. And that creates all of the elements for the downfall of civilization. And people that spoke up about it, they ended up being eradicated. So right now, we're dealing with a lot of distractions in this world right now because of the dimensional and vibrational shift that's taking place. But it's been going on, I want to say, for the past 50 years, maybe a little bit more, going as far back as the Vietnam War. Yes, going as far back as the Vietnam War. Because one thing that I do notice, whether it's a major vibrational shift, because we're on the precipice of a major vibrational shift right now, whether it's a minor one or a major one, the distractions that are always put in front of us usually circle around war, trauma, the trauma of war, seeing all of those dead bodies, seeing people sent away to war, watching them constantly destroy this level of our planet, which has repercussions and reverberations across the dimensions. I finally took my allergy pills, so I feel a little bit better. I hate taking medicine, but my allergies have been bothering me. I took one last night and I feel a lot better. Just on a side note. But usually, when they're trying to, usually one of the things that they try to distract us with is wars, racism, sexuality, politics. So this has been going on for the past 70 years or more. Because if I'm not mistaken, the Vietnam War started in 1955. So this is like the 70th anniversary for the Vietnam War, which was a major distraction because there was a major pinnacle and a major opportunity for shifting for a lot of people at that time in the 1950s. And I remember my uncle telling me he told me when we were having a phone conversations that there were a lot of sinister things that went on in the 1950s. A lot of sinister things that went on in the 1950s as it relates to governmental um, authorities. They did a lot of experimentation. They were practicing things. Look at Stranger Things, even though that's about the 1980s, but it all connects. How they're in the town. What's the name of that town in Stranger Things? I can't think of the name of it. Um, I can't think of the name of the town that they're in, but you know how they're doing all of those experiments in that town, opening up portals, using their technology to do it. When in actuality, to do that, it's best to do it with your consciousness, your spirit, whatever, you know what I'm saying? For the right purposes. Hawkins, that's the name of the play. Hawkins. Hawkins. Because there are people among us who, how can I put this? They don't have the spiritual molecular makeup, which spirit is also connected to the DNA and the genetics, not physical, but the spiritual DNA, divine natural anatomy. That's the DNA that they can't really study. They know it's there, but they can't study it. And there are those who don't have a spiritual molecular makeup. So, in order for them to go into higher etheric realms, they have to do it by means of, I call fake spirituality, which is technology. Going into outer space, when the only thing up there in outer space, in my opinion, is nothing but soulless ghouls and entities that lack a soul and a source. And there are people on this planet who lack a soul and lack source direction. A person that is soulless is someone that simply lacks direction from the source. They pull from something else. They pull from something else. What that is, I don't know. But they pull from something else. And some of them can even fiend being spiritual leaders. Some of them can even fiend being wise women or wise men. Some of them can garner large followings. And they can trick you into believing that what they're saying is the truth because it feels right. But just because something feels right doesn't make it right. And when I say that, I'm thinking a lot of Christianity and the religion of Christianity. See, they don't pull from source. They don't pull from the real divine source, the God or the goddess, rather. They don't pull from that. They pull from an empty cesspool that is godless and has no divine direction or guidance and no divinity. That is what they pull from. That is why their worlds are crumbling, along with the Islams and anybody in that alignment with that frequency of thinking. And they don't want to, how can I put it? They don't want people to elevate spiritually. But guess what? Now we're in the time where all of their machinations are crumbling before them. People, I'm glad to say, are starting to wake up. Maybe not fast enough, but people are starting to wake up. You can no longer use threats of hell and damnation and all that stuff. You can't use that anymore because people are awakening. This is the real return of Christ that they were talking about. This is the real return of Christ, not a physical return of a man. That's a cult mentality. That's a cult. That's a cult. The real return of Christ has nothing to do with religion. It has to do with you awakening spiritually. Take all of the names and archetypes out of it. It's about you activating your crown. But what they did was they distracted people with religion, fear, and damnation, and slavery, entrapment, enslavement, and people begin to no longer focus on their crown, which is what they call the Christ. It's your crown, but it's really your crown. So there are all of these distractions out there. Let's just go down the list of the distractions that have been put in front of us. Donald Trump, politics, Elon Musk. Now we're revisiting, now they're trying to, revisit with all of this racist divisiveness that's going on. They're revisiting that. They're using that as a distraction. They're using certain celebrity deaths as a distraction. Malcolm Jamal Warner, rest in power to him, but that's a distraction. Ozzy Osbourne, rest in power, but that's a distraction. That is a distraction. That's not being cruel and being dismissive of the death, but so many people are distraught about his death. There was one shift that took place in 1955 during the Vietnam War. There was another shift that took place 20 years later at the end of the Vietnam War, 1975, right? Then things started becoming more ambiguous with these shifts. What happened was people started not paying attention to them. Ruth Montgomery wrote a whole book. She was a psychic she was before Sylvia Brown and the rest of them. She wrote a book called The World Before. And she talks about these different shifts over time. But I remember hearing people making statements when they start, let me tell you something, so people will be aware of this. When they start talking about, oh, Jesus is getting ready to come back, that is symbolic of them saying, oh shit, there's another spiritual shift happening that will open up a gateway and a portal not only for a higher frequency and vibration and a higher dimension, but also higher spiritual knowledge, giving people an opportunity to elevate themselves spiritually and to awaken spiritually. That's all that means. But what they do is they mix in fear and enslavement. Religion is enslavement, and I don't give a fuck who that offends. It is enslavement. And it's especially enslavement to women. I look at the Basketball Wives, and Brittany on the Basketball Wives, she's become a Muslim. And I'm not knocking her journey, but that girl looks, so, because she's younger than me, she looks so traumatized. Because those deities are not serving you, you're serving them. They're not helping you. You got to go through some things sometimes to understand and to get to the next level. But that's another story. I'm not talking about being the perpetual victim of your own story. I'm talking about having experiences where you can elevate from that point and maybe you can help other people. Because that's the story of my life. But when they start talking about, oh, it's getting ready to end, the world is getting ready to all, when they start doing that, just know there's a shift coming that they, the ones who are perpetuating the fear, that they're not going to be able to elevate to that higher frequency. They're not going to be able to go. They're going to be stuck. They have info. Let me say it this way. They may have books and information, but having books and information is like having a rocket with no fuel. We got the fuel. See, we have the fuel. They just have the rocket. So what they do is, see, the fuel is the spirit or the soul, whatever you want to call it. They have the rocket, but we got the fuel. Without the fuel, your rocket ain't going anywhere. Why do you think they keep playing these games with Mars? Why do you think they keep playing these games with the moon and all of that type of stuff? We're going to get into some stuff about that. We're going to talk about that. They've been playing games with Mars for a very long time. They've been telling us, oh, what would life be like on Mars and all this other stuff. They're trying to find an escape. They're trying to go to a higher frequency, but they're not going to be able to do it because they are plagued with so much, and I'm going to be layman saying this, they are plagued with so much heavy, dense karma. And their karma will not let them raise to another frequency until they deal with it. Remember what I said earlier? Sometimes you got to go through some things because we all deal with our own karma one way or another. Past life karma and this life karma. So, because they're dealing with so much heavy negative emotions, greed, hatred without a purpose, because sometimes hatred can have a purpose if you hate something so much that you will change it or yourself. That's hatred with a purpose. And that's not directed at someone that you just hate. Greed, hatred, racism, bigotry, lies, destroying people's lives, Doing all of these things keep you locked down and entrapped. A lot of these people that you think are so wonderful, like the Elon Musk and all the rest of these motherfuckers, they are entrapped. They have the rocket, but they don't have the fuel. And that's a metaphor for those people in the back. Because, people are dumb and stupid and delayed. They'll think that I'm talking about an actual rocket. That's how stupid people are in social media now. They believe anything. You go on Facebook, people believe anything. I've had to correct multiple people on Facebook about stuff. They believe anything. There have been several shifts that have been taking place since the 1950s that we have been aware of. Then we got to 2012 and they told us that it was going to be a major shift. And what happened in 2012? They distracted us with the Trayvon Martin stuff. What did they distract us with throughout the whole 2000s? War in Iraq, war in Afghanistan, the war on terrorism. And now they're trying to use those same entrapments and distractions with Iran and the United States and Israel and Ukraine and Russia, stoking the fears of World War III. How about this? World War III has already happened. And it's not a physical war, it's a spiritual war. It's the war of highly advanced spiritual beings like us trying to maintain our spiritual sanctity so we can move on to the next level spiritually against those people who want things to stay the same. They want to stay in the same cesspool of bigotry, greed, poverty, hatred, destroying people's lives, perversion, pretending to be sorcerers and witches and pretending to be things that they're not, trying to demonize witches and sorcerers, trying to instill fear in people. Like this one person who I will not mention their name, but they're always doing these, podcasts, trying to instill fear in people, using Christianity, which is an enslavement and an entrapment. Christianity is a mental, what do they call it? Concentration camp. That's a mental concentration camp. That's a self-inflicted concentration camp. And it's not that people don't have the right to believe what they want to believe, but they try to force that cult onto other people and try to interfere with other people's spiritual path. And we're getting to a place where that will no longer work. So here are some of the things, and this video is going to be quick. Here are some of the signs that I have noticed that we are on the precipice of a major spiritual shift. Some of us have even shifted into other realities, and you may not even be aware of it. Because everyone is looking for this anticlimactic event. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. It doesn't happen that way. Atlantis, that's not going to happen again. What happened in Atlantis was because of corruption, human corruption. And I don't think spirit is going to let that happen again. That's why after Atlantis and even into let's go to World War II when they dropped the atomic bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. They opened up a portal throughout the universe. Nuclear weapons not only affect the Earth, they affect other dimensional gateways around the Earth into the universe. They affect other planets with life on it. That is why, after 1945, when they dropped the bomb on Nagasaki and Hiroshima, which I think was absolutely ridiculous to use that much force on, ridiculous. Not going against my country, but I thought that was really, really cruel and ridiculous. But when they dropped those bombs, that created a reverberation across the dimensions. And I've talked about that before. And during that time, a lot of people begin to incarnate on the planet. And this is from my spiritual studies. They begin to incarnate on the planet certain types of advanced spirits, begin to incarnate because of that to prevent another event like that happening again, because we remembered in our DNA and our divine natural anatomy, our spiritual, we remembered what happened in Atlantis and how human corruption led to the cataclysm of Atlantis and even Lemuria. And I know people, oh, that didn't exist, it's just a mythology. Okay, well just bear with me. Maybe it's a metaphor and an analogy for the generations to understand how corruption can hinder and destroy spiritual progress. But anyway, here are a few things that are happening that people are not paying attention to because people are being distracted by Malcolm Jamal Warner's death and all of the other deaths that are happening in Hollywood and by all of the political upheaval and everything that's going on. They always use politics to distract people. But have people been paying attention to what's been being said, excuse me, fleetingly about how the earth is spinning faster and the days are becoming shorter? This is the second time I've heard about this. And how the earth is moving further and further away from the moon. Have people been here, or the sun, or rather, whatever? These planetary differences and planetary changes, they're nothing to be scared of. They're actually something to rejoice about, because what it's telling me is that people are not paying attention to. They know it. I know it. That's the sign that there's a shift that's taking place. And these are just the byproducts and the result of that shift. These planetary changes are a result of it. The earth is still beautiful, but they want to tell you that the earth is dying. No, the earth isn't dying. Old ways of thinking are dying out, including religion, entrapment, politics. And there are wicked people in this world that are trying to hold on to that old way of life because they know, some of them, a lot of them know, this is all they got. Just like Jim Jones, the cult leader. Jim Jones was a sociopathic, suicidal person. And I'm not making fun of that. I'm not making fun of the word suicide, just to be clear. But I'm saying that to make a point. Jim Jones was in failing health, and he was afraid to die by himself. So that was one of the things that motivated him to do exactly what he did to his followers, which was take them with him. So coming back to what's going on now, that's what we're seeing now. A lot of these politicians that you motherfuckers love so much, they're like, it's like the Jim Jones effect. They're Jim Jones. And they have you motherfuckers in a loop. They're ciphering your energy, your frequency, your vibration, and they're going to keep you trapped in a lower vibration with them. You think because they have a lot of money that that always means that they're on a higher frequency and vibration? No. Like I said, they have the rocket, but a lot of them don't have the fuel. You have the fuel, but you're using your fuel to fuel their rocket that they're going to leave you on. I'm sorry, not leave you on. They're going to leave you right here in this decaying world. And it's not about, good or evil. It's about frequency and vibration and what you are aligned with. So, right now, it is important for people to just watch your thoughts as much as you can. God knows. The divine, the real God, the real divine God of the universe knows. She knows. She knows it's hard. Go outside and appreciate nature. Breathe in the air. I have noticed for myself personally, I've noticed that I feel 30 years younger. I feel 30 years younger. I feel like time is reversing. I don't feel 46 years old. I don't feel 4 years away from 50. I feel like I'm 25 or 26 years old again. Actually, I feel like I'm 16 years old again. And I'm going to be totally honest with you. I am not kidding with you. Something is happening, but you got to pay attention. Something is changing in the frequencies and the vibration. These are small things that I'm noticing. I'm noticing around where I live at, the frequency is calmer. I'm noticing troubled people and people that, you know, well, let me just say it this way. I don't want to say that. I'm just noticing that certain individuals, or you will notice, let me put it this way. You will notice that certain people will not be able to be around you anymore because your frequencies are no longer aligned. This is the real this is the real rapture that they've been talking about. Has nothing to do with none of that stuff they're saying. It has nothing to do with that stuff they say in Christianity and the Bible. No. The real rapture is about spiritual evolution and the alignment of frequencies and vibrations that will elevate some and keep some people where they're at. I almost feel like I'm back in the 90s when I was 15 and 16 years old. I feel like a teenager again. And I'm kidding. I'm not kidding. I'm not lying about this. You don't see no cash app out here asking nobody to give me any money or trying to make you feel what I feel. You don't see any of that. I don't have any ulterior motive. Something is happening and they try to hide it in different news reports. Oh, the earth is spinning faster. July 22nd was the shortest day. Then one report said, what was it, a couple of weeks back, or maybe a couple of weeks back, one report said, oh, this is the longest day. That lets you know that the earth is harmonizing herself. She's balancing herself through this shift and shifting. And within that, you're going to notice that you're not going to be, there are certain things that just won't appeal to you anymore. There are certain people and situations that just won't appeal to you anymore. And you're going to start seeing people disappear in your life. Don't fret. Don't feel lonely. Don't feel bad because that's what's supposed to happen. Some of them may be lovers, some of them may even be family members. But if they're not on the same alignment and frequency and vibration that you're on, they're not going to be around you like that. Not saying that you won't ever see them, but they will not be able to withstand the frequency that you're on or the vibration that you're on because they're on such a low frequency. So they won't be able to withstand where you're at. And see, I'm gonna tell you something else, and this may be an unpolitically correct point of view, but you see how a lot of people are leaving this world, and that's because, and a lot of them are celebrities, and that's because some of those people they cannot withstand the vibration rising. So a lot of people are going to be canceled out. Let me just say it that way. It's not about good and evil, it's about frequency and vibration. Let me say that again. That is why you have so many people who are in conflict right now. And I was listening to another wise person talk about this as well. That is why there's so much turmoil. That is why there's so much conflict because there's a major shift that's happening right now. And there are people who want to hold on to an old way of life and an old way of thinking, and they want to constantly project that out to the rest of the world. But that's not going to keep working because in a minute, you ain't going to have nobody to project it to but yourself. Welcome to the spiritual motherfucking evolution. Anyway, this is the occult view, and that's all I really have to say for now. Thank you.